$4.
What was that?
It was a bad day.
Oh, was that what?
Literally, I had one item sell on that show.
Wow.
October was the first month that we did something so incredibly brave, and my husband stepped away from his full-time trucking job and decided to work with me full-time as a reseller. We saw the writing on the wall. We have been working through live sales over the last couple months, and I said I was going to stay a little more consistent with giving you guys updates about that. It is coming, I promise. In fact, I'm going to give you an update this week on live sales, and then next week we're going to do a live sales like basics 101 video talking about the things that I have found to make the process of loading a show seamless, running a show seamless, and packaging the items a little more seamless. But first, let's get into the figures. I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen because I don't talk a lot about my numbers on this channel as far as like in its entirety, and still in a way this isn't like adding in social media. This is more of the transactional, me trading clothing or shoes for money coming in. We had sales from Whatnot, we had sales from eBay, and we had sales from Poshmark. If you guys remember, I closed my store in Poshmark, I think it was like in April, and I was doing a revamp of my store, and I was gonna start testing out what sort of product should I be putting on Poshmark to continue to still have good sales over on Poshmark. Now we need to do a deep dive into Poshmark later in a future video, so I will be doing that. Make sure you are subscribed because I will be going over some of the things that I did as changes when I started to bring items back over to Poshmark. But when they added in live sales, it was a game changer. Fortunately for us, we had already been doing live sales on Whatnot pretty consistently, so I had a really good flow happening. And then we've also had experience with doing live sales before when I did Galaxy last year, and then when I also did Facebook groups a couple years ago. We're gonna go into the good, bad, and the ugly with the Posh shows at the end of this video, so make sure you guys are watching all the way till then. But first, like I said, let's get into the numbers. So Poshmark generated this much, and then eBay dropped a little bit because we were running so hard with Posh shows over this last month, especially with my husband coming on full time. We had Posh shows available when we still had to create like full-blown listings, not when there was like quick listings. So the amount of time we spent adding items into Poshmark just so I could post them in a show was extreme. There was so much that we had to do. So eBay sales definitely dipped because of that. I wasn't able to list as many items. I wasn't able to get as many items photographed on a regular basis for our virtual assistants to draft. So I definitely saw a dip. In fact, these are the numbers right here for eBay. Then Whatnot also slowed down.
204.
204.
204.
Okay.
$4.
What was that?
It was a bad day.
Oh, was that what?
Literally, I had one item sell on that show.
Wow.
$225.
Okay.
131 even. $657.
Okay. That's all the shows we did on Whatnot?
There wasn't a lot of shows we did on Whatnot.
I guess that's about right if we did like 1 week or something.
Whatnot slowed down because I saw an opportunity to try out this beta, but more importantly, begin to build a customer base. When Posh Shows was available to us, we kind of hit the ground running because I wanted to try out a ton of stuff in a short amount of time to gain some analytics, specifically right before we went into the holiday season. I didn't want to start playing around with things in Q4 when it was really go time to be making sales. I still maintained doing at least one sale a week on Whatnot, but it really took a step back from the 2 shows that we were doing on a weekly basis on Whatnot, which was great still because I figured out, you know, what would sell well on Whatnot and then what would sell well on Poshmark, and I would kind of interchange the inventory just as a good analytics for the month. But nevertheless, this is how much we made on Whatnot. We totaled just shy of $24,000 gross this month. Now, I'm not going to go into details about how much of that was cost of goods, and I'm not going to go into fee structures there. That is more for our own protection due to the amount of money that our business made this month. But nevertheless, my husband being that he was now working full-time with me, we were able to take the same checks that he had been taking before, which was really all we were looking for. This month, we were just hoping that we could replace the income so that way we could continue working together, meanwhile still being able to pay our bills. And we also were saving in gas and food because he wasn't having to travel for work. So that was really nice because essentially we saved money and still gave the same checks in our very first month of both of us being full-time as resellers. Show is pretty much taking up my life at this point. Like, I don't understand how people can do more than 2 shows in a day. I give mad props for them. I continue to think of myself as a buyer, and I think, what would I want if I were to go on a live sale? And for me, that is making sure I have a good title with the size and color there, and also having a photo. I really like, as more of like a seller, I really love to have the stock photos if I do have time to get them, but most of the time I do not. So at least bare minimum, we want to have the photo of the item and we want to have a title. You'll see here, I start the morning with finding out, what am I going to do today? What is my themed show for the day? And let's pick up the inventory for that. Whether it's me digging through unlisted inventory or pulling inventory from our shelves. You know, a piece of me kind of wishes that Poshmark was on the same wavelength with me as like 6 months ago when I was trying to do an audit of over 3,000 active listings, because we have continued to grow our business, figure out what sells well for us. We've continued to convert the types of stuff that we're picking up. So we had a pretty good plethora of items that I was like, this doesn't really fit the style of the store we want to continue to maintain. These items don't sell well in this category, but these categories sell really well. So we were doing a huge transition of our inventory. And I will be honest, when Whatnot came into the picture, that was one of the biggest things I was excited about with it is, hey, let me work on building a customer base who will be interested in watching my shows and hanging out with my husband and I. Meanwhile, I can liquidate some of the inventory that isn't really on par with the types of stuff that we like to sell or have listed in our stores anymore. And we were also trying to increase our average sales price. So before, I was in the business of purchasing stuff at the bins and flipping it for $15 or $18 or whatever the case is, but generally under $25. We began to realize that it was costing us a lot to store that kind of inventory. So when Posh Shows and Whatnot came into the picture, it was really nice because essentially we could still have the same model. I mean, we have access to the Goodwill outlets or just places where we can buy in bulk, and so the cost of goods is really low. We can still continue to do that, but now we can do it on live sales where all we're doing is hanging up the stuff on the clothing racks, putting a number on it, not having to store it in a system, and then continue with shipping it out to the buyer who purchases the piece. That has been a huge transformation in our business.
What's the gross?
So the gross is $23,937.92.
So we were really close to 24.
Yes.
That's not that far off from. I mean, initially I was thinking I'd love to hit 20, but then with like the rate that things were going, I felt like maybe we could hit 25. So yeah, if we had those shoes that are now being sent back to us, they would have gone well over 24.
Over 24, yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Making all this kind of money, I'm sure you guys are just thinking that we are swimming in the dollars and that we are just living large and life is good. Well, let me put you onto something, because I feel like right now in the community, there's such a heightened, like, there's no customers over on Whatnot, yet all the customers are over on Poshmark. And to which I would somewhat agree with that. Poshmark has been established for 6-7 years. They have created a market of people coming to their stores and purchasing items. Yes, customers are over there. Does that mean that there aren't any customers on Whatnot? No. Yes, is there a higher percentage of people that are resellers over there? Yeah, but they're also on Poshmark too. I don't like the statement there's no customers on Whatnot and all the customers are over on Poshmark, because it is false. I see lots of sales and people who have created a customer base on Whatnot, and they're doing really, really well. In fact, I have one friend specifically that I did a Posh show and then she did a Whatnot show. Granted, let's set the standard for you, if we will. I have 190,000 followers on Poshmark. She had just hit 1,000 followers on Whatnot. I made $649 in a show. She made $1,500 in a Whatnot show. In that same day, she made more money than I did and I was on Posh and she was on Whatnot. Don't tell me that there aren't customers on Whatnot. It's a matter of what you're purchasing. It's a matter of what you're selling. What are the prices that you're starting at and how many people you're bringing into a show. Also, should I clarify something? I have 26,000 followers on Instagram and she has, I think, like 2,000. So again, don't tell me that you have to be a big influencer to have a customer base. I really do think it's about who you are as a person. How are you genuinely? What kind of inventory do you have? Are you fun to hang out with? Do you keep a good flow? There's so many different aspects to how to be successful on both platforms. We can argue that statement all day, every day, and I will be happy to have that argument. But one of the things that I did really want to take home, because again, I feel like it's a part of the conversation that isn't getting brought up fully, is people have stars in their eyes because they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm making so much money on Posh Shows. This is a game changer. And not enough people are talking about the reality. Kind of like what I was just saying a second ago, like expectations versus reality. You might be thinking, I am swimming in the dough and it is going to continue to go up from here and I am living large and living glad. But that is far from the truth, because bundle shipping. Now, Poshmark does not have a way for people to purchase multiple items in one show and immediately have one shipping cost. And a piece of me worries about this. I think that some people are starting to have this conversation saying, hey, Poshmark, you're not giving bundle shipping. This isn't okay. You need to change this right now. And I think Poshmark's going to solve one problem and then immediately have another problem, which is what happens if someone purchases more than 5 pounds worth of stuff. At the moment right now, we have no way of weighing our items on Poshmark. And so yeah, they might get to a place where they change the feature. Once a show is done, all the items will be bundled. But then who's going to pay the extra shipping cost? If we already have items that are going to be selling low for us, are we going to end up as the seller having to spend the extra money for it? Because I guarantee I ain't doing that.
Absolutely not. Not me. Certainly not I.
Because on Poshmark right now, if you have to change the shipping label up to 10 pounds, I think you end up paying like 10 or 20 extra dollars to ship that item. I have better prices on Pirate Ship than that price. It's insane. But regardless, kind of going back to the first point, as of right now, you cannot do bundle shipping. But they've created a customer base on their app that is used to going into stores, adding a bunch of things into their cart and doing one bundle shipping cost. So there's a lot of manual aspects that a host or a seller is having to do right now to make up for the fact that there isn't a feature for that. It is madness. So first, when we started, my husband and I said, only the people that want bundles, you have to message us. The problem that we didn't realize is in the order section of someone's purchase, they can make a comment there. And that's now a place where they can escalate it and send it to customer support. But there is no way to filter on Poshmark that comment. There's a message that gets sent to me in my email, but right now, I on a regular basis have over hundreds of emails because thank you for purchasing this item. Thank you for shipping this item. Thank you for canceling this item. Here's a new offer. This person has sent you a host pick. And that's just the Poshmark emails. That's not even including eBay or any of the other emails that I'm getting on a regular basis. So I have to, in my email of hundreds of items, filter when someone messages me in the one section of Poshmark. It ain't happening. So after a week of dealing with that, my husband and I decided any person who purchases more than one item in a show, we are gonna bundle the item for them. Now, what is bundling for us? Well, Poshmark has a really weird way of doing it. And I mean, to each their own. You can choose the way that Poshmark is doing it. The way we're doing it is working really well for us at the moment, and this is what it is. We will find all of the items that the person has purchased. We will take a picture either in the box or like kind of laid out, and then we say the username, how many items are in their bundle, and then in the description we write out each piece that they purchased. And my husband's actually been screenshotting the items that they purchased too, so they can not only see what they purchased but also what the price was. And then that one listing is the total of everything that they purchased in that show. Once they purchase that, then we cancel all the other items. Side note, and I guess if you will, expert note at this moment. There is a really easy way to figure out if one person purchased something, what all their orders were. If you go into the sales section of Poshmark, you can search by the username. You can search by the username. It was a game changer. When I realized that, I was so excited. It made the process of bundling so much faster. It is still a lengthy process. One show can generate 3 hours worth of work just in shipping. I wish that it didn't take this long, but I also understand that right now, the additional work that it's taking to do these sales is gonna be it's going to deter people from jumping ship and going over to Poshmark completely, which I think is good, because my biggest concern with Poshmark is they are not equipped to be like Whatnot, to have hundreds of thousands of people going live on a regular basis. And I'm really concerned for people's standalone stores. I've already been hearing that items have been canceling for no reason. There's been glitches for people just having stores, not even people who are doing shows. And then there's also been glitches in the shows. I think that maybe at some point they're gonna have to create a standalone app of like, hey, if you wanna be in someone's show, you gotta download this app. That way they're two separate things, because I just can't. I feel like Poshmark ran into this so fast, and now they're trying to give access to everyone to do Posh shows, and I'm kind of bracing myself for a crash. And it really worries me, because I know that people are still trying to make good income on Poshmark, and they can't afford to have a crash happen on the app. So I hope Poshmark will prove me wrong on that one, but that is something that I'm worried about on a regular basis. So at least right now, because of the bundling and the hassle that it has taken, it isn't making everyone want to jump over there yet. And so I think it's going to give Poshmark a little bit more time to develop the Posh shows correctly, so that way that can potentially prevent that from happening. Returns. Oh my gosh, I feel like the worst person on the planet just trying to enforce the rules of Poshmark. And what's so frustrating right now is, again, I feel like they threw Posh shows out just as fast as they possibly could to keep up with the competitor. And because of that, people are asking for returns. Most of the time I feel like it's honestly buyer's remorse, but people are like, I on accident bid. You didn't describe a flaw here. And I'm like, I've described everything in the show. I stated in my listing that I was gonna mention everything in the show. I can't in the description do all of this extra stuff just to make sure it is concrete. It is tracked somewhere, because Poshmark right now doesn't record live shows. So when a customer service rep comes in because someone's saying, hey, I want to return, this person didn't disclose this flaw, I'm like, yes, I did. It was in the show. Yes, it's not in the listing because I added this item just strictly for the show. What is it that you want, Poshmark? Do you want me to describe everything in depth in that one listing just so I can make sure I don't battle these people that are trying to falsely accuse me of flaws that I didn't share in there? Or am I going to be able to do quick ads, add items into a show, and then have the customer support there going, you bid on an item. I can't tell you how it was described in the show, but it was described in the show. You saw it, you saw the piece firsthand. I will not accept your return. Because right now I'm getting a lot of approved returns from Poshmark because they say, well, there's nothing in your listing to disclose that there was a flaw. This has to be one of the most frustrating things on the planet. And then I always feel sorry because I'm having this communication back and forth with the customer service rep in front of the customer, and I have no way of just protecting myself going, okay, what's the deal here? This is the policy. This is what was said in the live shows. This is verbatim what someone told me to tell you, the customer rep person, to cover me, the seller, yet you're still not listening to me. And then the customer is watching the whole thing go down, and now they're not gonna like me afterwards because I'm not accepting the return. Like, this is not fair. I'm having to defend myself in the way that I am explaining how I described the item in a show in front of the customer rep person as well as the customer, because then the customer gets defensive or they get upset because emotionally they're either irritated because of buyer's remorse or whatever reason why they're choosing to try to do this return at this point. And then I end up losing a customer. I would rather not lose the customer, but I also don't like being accused of things that I didn't do or didn't say. And so it's been this really weird tension, because I would much rather have people be happy with me and happy in the shows, because that's my personality, I guess. And I don't want people to come back into my shows and be like irate because I didn't accept a return and then they're spamming my comments or something like that. Nothing like that has happened yet, but I just think about those things when I end up with a return. But regardless, Poshmark doesn't accept returns based on size. They don't accept return. They're not supposed to accept returns if they had bid on an item in a show. Yet I have had probably 10 plus returns over the last month, or ones that I've had to advocate for myself to try to not have a return happen. And it's just not a good experience for both the buyer and the seller. I'd rather not have to deal with that. And in fact, if that's something that I could say a pro versus a con in a way of Poshmark versus Whatnot, I maybe had 2 incidences like that on Whatnot. Granted, I think I've sold the same amount of stuff on Whatnot and on Poshmark at this point as far as Posh Shows. And I've had more people wanting to do returns on Poshmark than I have ever had on Whatnot. So if you want to make a decision right there, consider that before anything else. You need to know going into shows, whether it's on any of the 2 platforms that I have mentioned so far or any other types of platforms, you need to know what to expect. And I really hope that this video helps you see, if you wanted to go into this platform, here's some of the things you need to consider. Here's what you need to get prepared for. If I didn't answer any of your questions, I would love to know down below what are some of your thoughts, or still maybe some of the hangups that you have when it comes to live sales. Whether you're a customer or even a seller, I would love to help you in that way. But I will be doing a video next week, so make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell notification so that way you will know when that video goes out. I'm going to do a full depth of how I load a show, how I do a show, and then how I do the bundling afterwards. I already kind of talked about it a little bit here because I feel like it's necessary and not enough people are talking about the bundling aspect, but I think that there's still a little more in depth that I can show you in the future. So stick around and I will see you guys next week. Bye.